My precious right hand. What a Canadian immigrant accomplished with God's help after the experts failed. By Peter Hoover, originally of Ontario, Canada. Chapter 5 of 5. A Bigger Picture. No, after my last treatment at Frau Siemens' place, I never saw her again. When I grew up, got married to Susan Wiebe Kron, and also moved to Latin America, we heard years later that she had died in St. Catherine's Hospital, not far from Niagara-on-the-Lake. Her family, her grandchildren, her many friends from Soviet Russia, from Germany, from Paraguay, Brazil, and Canada, heard what happened and understood. Frau Siemens' last few weeks involved extreme suffering, but she died ready to meet God in peace, the enduring peace of Christ that the world does not know and cannot give. Before she died, Frau Siemens had asked her Mennonite Brethren congregation to sing a number of favorite selections. Here is the English translation of one of them. Defenseless and abandoned, I often long for quiet rest. But through it all, Lord, you care for me and cover me with your sheltering wings. Your gentle love and peace that never fails. In you, Lord, I find consolation and rest. You shield me, you protect me, and cover me in love. Frau Siemens, before she died, asked 2 ministers from 2 Mennonite churches to take part in her funeral service. Brother Peter Clausen of the Mennonite Brethren spoke in English, and Werner Fast of the Niagara United Mennonites shared a message in German. Oh, how much she wanted all serious believers to get beyond their petty divisions, their cultural limitations, and to find the right way, the joyful way, to eternity in Christ together. She had seen the bigger picture, God's picture, and understood. Brother Werner Fast based her funeral message on Psalm 121, and at the end of the service, on Frau Siemens' request, the congregation sang one English song. When all my labors and trials are o'er, and I am safe on that beautiful shore, just to be near the dear Lord I adore, will through the ages be glory for me. Oh, that will be glory for me, when by his grace I shall look on his face. That will be glory for me. Even though she never found it easy to converse in English, Frau Siemens wanted all English visitors attending her funeral to also receive a blessing. And later, in the Mennonite periodical Der Bote, the correspondent from the Niagara region wrote, "Lift up your eyes to the Lord. He is a helper, sustainer, and provider." Our sister Helena Siemens experienced this truth in the difficult situations of her life. Her life was filled with thanksgiving, and she was an instrument in the hands of God. With her capable hands, she helped many physically, and with her gift of love and understanding, she helped many more spiritually. Many years later, after I last saw Frau Siemens in Ontario, Canada, my wife Susan and I spent a number of days, involuntarily, at the Mennonite Center in Asuncion, Paraguay. The Mennoheim, as we called it. For days, tropical rains had swamped the area. Everything dark and dripping, molding stone walls under gorgeously blooming jacaranda trees and sprays of bougainvillea. This in the Paraguayan winter of 1984. Every night the place filled up with Plotich Mennonites from their far-flung colonies throughout the country. They came to Asuncion to do their business in the city, and like us, they got stuck. Stuck in the city because all dirt roads had closed, gates locked across them to keep any unwitting driver from getting stuck in the long, lonely trails through the rainforest. We waited it out. But during that time, I befriended a good number of Mennonite farmers from the Chaco, from Sommerfeld and Bergthal in eastern Paraguay, and particularly a contingent from Volendam colony. We ate together around long tables, everyone in good spirits with much to say. We received deep-fried mandioca day after day, and how much we enjoyed the excellent German bread. But when my wife Susan spread her piece of bread generously with what she thought was peanut butter and tried it, I saw her dismay. Not peanut butter, it turned out, but cleverly ground horseradish. Speaking with one of the Volendam colonists, a woman who worked in that colony's cooperative, I asked if she had ever known Hans and Helena Siemens, a man who died here in Paraguay but whose widow and 3 boys moved to Canada. Startled, she looked up to me. "Do you mean the Frau Siemens that set bones and fixed muscles?" "Yes, exactly," I told her. "As a boy I had wrecked my elbow and shoulder, but she, with the Lord's help, could fix it, and all these years I have used my right hand, just like everyone else." "See," I told her, "this is how I can use my fingers, and, watch this, how I can flex my elbow. I owe my normal life to Frau Siemens, a sister who dared to trust God all the time." Those around us had stopped talking and listened. "That is a good report," the woman who worked in the colony cooperative said. "Maybe someday you will have to write a story about it." Many more years later, while we lived in Australia, I spent a good bit of time in the Royal Hospital of our state capital, Hobart, Tasmania. Once I could get around a bit, my teenage son Justin took me down to the docks, one of the best natural harbors on Earth, Macquarie Wharf, and thankfully a huge, beautifully designed passenger ship, the kind one might dream about, lay at anchor. We hurried over. Only then did we notice the tricolored flag of the Netherlands, and simultaneously the name on its huge, graceful bow, SS Volendam II. What a rush of memories! How many links with so many people and places and times! Thoughtfully, in silence, I flexed my right elbow. "Ach, my Zeit! Jetzt kannst du auch schon deine Finger bewegen." Oh, what a joy! Now you can bend your fingers again. Now, this month, December 2020, I decided to write up the story of Frau Siemens of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Quickly, while time continues and our grandchildren learn how to read and understand. I want them to have this story. Humble, ordinary people like Frau Siemens make the real difference in time and eternity. People who know God and live accordingly through thick and thin. Motherly souls, rocking cradles while ruling the world. Yes, Frau Siemens saw trouble. Unbelievably much distress. But in simple faith, taking God by His word, she conquered. More than conquerors in Christ all around the world. I wrote to Frau Siemens' family in Canada. I contacted numerous friends in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Kitchener, Ontario, and in the Volendam colony of eastern Paraguay. One consistent story, Frau Siemens, wherever she lived, brought blessing and made friends. Then, once I explored the records of the Niagara Lakeshore Cemetery, the burial place where I expected for her, I found it. I read it, and my eyes immediately filled up with tears. From the inscription on a small flat stone down in the grass, I read, Helena Siemens, 1905 to 1991. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord. Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2. Not a question remained. Here rests the courageous woman I just wrote about. Flexing my elbow and moving my fingers 55 years later, all of them still work, in spite of the fact that Dr. Talon, the bone specialist in Kitchener, had declared me handicapped for life. For a while I stood and worshipped God. And now, friends, you have just finished reading a story I wrote. I have been writing most of my life, for the glory of God. I wrote it, as you've probably guessed, with my precious right hand.